This video covers Photoshop Chapter 1 Skills Review 1-33. The first thing I want you to do is download your Chapter 1 data files, and inside we'll be working at launching Photoshop and working with a couple of these very briefly. There is a Photoshop PS1, and I want you to name that friends.psd. That's within your Chapter 1 data files. Okay, once you rename that, you can close right out of it and then launch Photoshop. We're going to be starting in Photoshop 1-33, the end of the chapter skills review, which is due this week. Start Adobe Photoshop CS6. First we're going to start Photoshop, which we've done, and you want to create a new image, File, New, at 500 by 600 pixels. Now we are at pixels. If for some reason yours says inches, you're going to want to go to Edit, Preferences, Units and Increments, and change your units and increments to pixels as opposed to inches. It should default to pixels. Okay, next you want to go ahead and save it as Review. Accept the default resolution, which right here is at 100, and say OK. Open and save an image. Number 1, open PS1-3 JPEG from the drive and folder where you store your data files. So we'll do File, Open, navigate out to Chapter 1 Data Files, open PS1-3. Save it as Rafting. File, Save As. You can save that anywhere. I had already saved it, so I had to replace, and then just say OK. Okay, examine the Photoshop window. Step 1. Locate the image title bar and the current zoom percentage. So we see the title bar, Rafting JPEG, and the zoom percentage. We are viewing this at 66.7% of its original size. Then change the color theme to light gray. You can do that in the Preferences. Many of you will go to Edit, Preferences, those of you who are working on a PC. And then if you go to Interface, you can find that here you want to switch it to the color theme to light gray and say OK. So there we can view it. I know Photoshop now has these options. In the past they had it as one option, which was a specific interface color. Well, now I believe it defaults to the darkest gray, close to black, and you have to change it through Preferences. Step 2, locate the menu you use to open an image. View the Tools panel, the options bar, and the panels that are showing. So we have, Photoshop, File, Edit, Image, Layer, Type, Select, Filter, 3D View, Window, and Help. Now remember, Photoshop at any time, if you're trying to do something, you can always go to the Help menu and type in a keyword. And for example, if I was going to do rotate, if I was trying to rotate something, and then, oh, I'm surprised it didn't do that. Let's say image size. If I want to find where image size is, all I have to do is scroll down, and you'll see how wonderful that is. It actually brings up an arrow, hovers, and shows me right within the menu where that's located. So Help is a great tool. Before you ask questions online, I would expect that you actually go up to the menu and look under Help first. Okay, the next thing is become familiar with your toolbar, because that's a very important part of Photoshop, and all of your panels to the right hand side. These are anchored, and of course they can become floating panels as you wish. And then if you just hover over them and see that blue line, you can let go, and then it becomes anchored once again. Each one of these bump right out. Click it again, it bumps in. And these can be viewable and floatable as well. For example, if I wanted to see properties in brush, I could go ahead, pull them over, hover, and then group these panels and adjust the size as I see fit for my particular project that I'm working on. You can make them more narrow. I believe this might be as narrow as they get for here. And then you can collapse them where you can see an icon. And then you can also re-anchor them right into the bar. And you can float your panels anywhere you'd like. So lots of options here. Open, close, open, close. You can bring these into a different column if you wish, if you need more space. So play around with your panels to the right-hand side of the workspace. Play around with your toolbar. Hover over each one of the tools and make sure that you learn what each one of them are, because that's going to be important throughout the rest of the term. Okay, step 4. Click the Move tool on the Tools panel, which is the very top, and it's also V on your keyboard. View the Move tool options on the Options bar. So you have your Options bar up here. Each one of these are context sensitive. So in other words, if you click on a tool, you'll find that each one of these have different options that correlate with that specific tool. Then reset the Essentials workspace. So right now we're under Motion. You can reset Motion. You can hover over and go to Legacy. You can go to Essentials, which is what they're asking us to do. You want to be in the Essentials workspace. This workspace offers certain panels that are going to pertain to whatever project we're working on. Step 5, create, save, and display a customized workspace called History and Layers that captures panel locations and displays the History panel above the Color panel. So it's asking us to do that. What we'll do is to create a new workspace. So we go up over here to the Essentials workspace, and you can go right down to New Workspace. And what you want to do is save it as History and Layers. And you want it to capture panel locations and displays the History panel above the Color panel. Go ahead and hit save. Oh, okay. I can't use an ampersand. That's fine. Say save. Okay, we are now operating under the History and Layers workspace. And now what you want to do is have the panel locations and displays, captures panel locations and displays the History panel above the Color panel. So we'll want to make sure we go get the History panel, make sure that's viewing. It's right here. And you want that above the Color panel. So now I'll go to the Color panel. I'm going to pull that right out. And I'm going to hover. Now I have the History panel above the Color panel. And I'm going to say, I'm just going to keep it right there. And we're going to go ahead. And that is exactly Window, Workspace. Now we have History and Layers. This workspace should pop up every time you want to go to History and Layers. Okay, now we want to go to step 6, Open Bridge, which you can go under File, Browse and Bridge. Let's navigate out to your Chapter 1 data files. Remember how I had you save this Friends PSD? It wants us now to label this, which you can do just by selecting it. And I believe you can find label. in this area, and you can also find it up here in your menu. And it wants us to label it as a to-do file. So we just did that. All it does is show it a purplish bar below it. Now it wants us to return the Photoshop color theme to the default. So remember when we'll close Bridge right now. Remember when we changed this to a lighter gray workspace. Now we're going to go ahead and go to Preferences, Interface, and change it to the default, which is the second from the left color box. There we go. Color theme, say OK. Okay, so it wants us to now compare with the figure, and it looks just like how we want it to. Next, close a file and exit Photoshop. Okay, we can close this rafting file now. Close the review file, which we've already closed. Quit or exit Photoshop. And you can go ahead and upload those two files to the Chapter 1 Skills Review submission in JetNet under the Week 1 module, and answer the questions within the submission link right within the text field in JetNet. Learn about design principles and copyright rules. Those types of things can all be found in Chapter 1, and I'll see you in the next week's video.